Hey guys, I'm so excited to film this video. I was very excited to get the new Prism palette in the mail. I had to break into it as soon as possible. So this is my first impressions, and I'm going to be doing a few different looks for you guys to hopefully give you guys some inspiration if you decide to pick this palette up. That's pretty much it for the intro. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's jump into it. Okay, so just a quick little disclaimer before we jump into this. I'm going to be filming a little bit differently today. Normally I would do one eye completely and then I would film the other eye super close up for you. I'm going to be doing both eyes on camera today for two reasons. Number one, the biggest criticism that I've seen of this palette so far is that people are worried about it not being cohesive. They're not really sure how they're going to make color combinations out of it. So I want to be able to walk you guys through me doing my entire makeup, not having done part of it off camera and thinking about what I'm going to do, so you guys can kind of see my thought process of choosing colors and all that kind of stuff, and hopefully that will help you guys in that regard. And number two, the last palette that Anastasia came out with was obviously very controversial. It was Subculture, and people were having a lot of different blending issues with it and stuff like that. And even myself, I ended up really liking the palette, but I still noticed after playing with it more that there were certain issues that came about, but the reactions weren't as genuine on camera because I had already done one eye off camera. So if there are going to be any issues with this palette, you guys will be able to see it in the flesh. Okay, let's jump into it. The color I think that's throwing me off the most is Sphere, so I'm gonna start with that. So I'm gonna grab a Sphere on my little Smith 230 brush, and I'm going to start by blending that into my crease. This color is pretty weird. It's very highlighter yellow, and I feel like it kind of stands out to me in the palette. Not necessarily in a good way. Actually, you know what? I almost wish that I'd use this as like an inner corner highlight or something, like kind of like a weird inner corner highlight. The next color I'm gonna pick up is Eden, I think. I'm kind of just thinking at this point that I might do like a little halo eye with the brighter tones in the palette. So I'm just taking on that on the inner and outer corner with the same brush. Just placing out my shape first with the most pigmentation, and then I'll blend it out in a bit. I definitely think this is like a little bit more approachable in terms of how it's pressed, and the pigmentation is more buildable than the Subculture one. Like I felt like that was kind of one of the most difficult working points with Subculture, was that as soon as you dipped your brush in, you had like full pigmentation, which would normally be seen as kind of a good thing, but it actually makes it a little bit difficult because you can't really build up that color. You're kind of just going in full force and then trying to blend out later. So I'm just dipping back into Sphere to help blend this out. Yeah, this is definitely pressed more similarly to Modern Renaissance, I would say, than Subculture. I'm just taking a little bit more of Eden on my blending brush and just packing on a little bit more color. And I'm gonna bring it all the way across. So we're just kind of leaving like an empty space right there on the lid. This reminds me of mangoes. So good. Okay, so next I'm gonna grab Saturn, and I'm just taking this on my little Volair EO9 brush. And I'm going to go ahead and start deepening our halo eye. I think this palette would be really cool paired with Subculture. I wonder if that'd be a neat video, like pairing palettes. Because I think sometimes we get new products and then we almost, well, I do definitely, like I almost forget about my old products. But it'd be cool to like do a video, I think, like reworking like old palettes and matching them together. It'd be kind of neat. And then I'm gonna go back into Eden, which was the last color that we used, and pick up a little bit more of that to blend out that color Saturn. I need to stop holding so many things when I'm filming. I always realize that I'm holding like 12 brushes in my hands like this, and then like my video turns out like this. Next, I'm gonna grab the color Lucid. I think this will be kind of cool on the lid. And I'm just gonna pack that on. With my finger instead. Yeah, that's definitely one for the ye old fingers. And actually there's surprisingly minimal amounts of fallout, considering I think this is one of those shades that could be real fucked up, but seems to be working out pretty well here. I'm gonna take a little bit of that Saturn underneath the eyes. And I'm gonna kind of bring it into that inner corner, just a touch. And then I'm gonna dip back into Sphere and just kind of use that to buff this out. That ends up actually being like a surprisingly nice transition shade. The only thing I was kind of nervous about is like it looks very highlighter yellow in the pan. So I was worried about it pulling almost too green, if that makes sense. I'm feeling pretty positively about that. Okay, I think that's where I'm gonna leave this one off. So I'm gonna pop on my lashes and mascara and I'll show you guys the finished look. So this is the final look. And this is the final look with a full face going on. So far, I'm liking it. I think it's really easy to blend and build up colors and stuff like that. But I think we should dip in to some other shades. Let's see how this goes. Okie dokie, look number 2. It's on, baby. I'm going to dip into Lure, and I'm going to start by putting that into my outer V. And I'm gonna take that underneath my eyes as well, accentuating my eye bag. So instead of putting it right underneath my lower lash line, I'm taking it down just a step to kind of accentuate that bag. I just think it looks very high fashion. I like those photos of models that have like really harsh lighting and they have these nice like accentuated eye bags. I think it just looks so cool. And I'm just grabbing a little bit of Lure and I'm gonna mix it with Unity, this kind of like beige color. And so I just dot my brush back and forth, and I'm doing that to make it a little bit of a lighter shade of that color Lure, but still having a touch of that tone in there so that we're blending it out, but also pulling a little bit of that color into the crease. And then I'm gonna pick up just Unity and just kind of brush over the outskirts of everything. I'm gonna go in and add a little bit more of that color Lure and just really build it up on that outer corner before I go in with my next shade. Pretty. I would wear that shade actually just by itself, to be quite honest. It might be nice to like pat it across the lid and blend it out, but not today. I'm gonna take the color Obsidian, which is just a matte black, and I'm going to put a touch of that on the outer V, and I'm gonna blend it out. Why in God's name did I pick up this brush for blending that out? That has truly been a horrific experience. What am I doing here? It's a good question. I'm gonna bring that black shade a little bit further in. And then I'm gonna blend it out, picking up more of that color Lure on our brush and using it to buff out the edges of this. I think I'm going to put down a little base for this next color. Okay, I'm gonna use my Nude Sticks Magnetic Matte Eye Color in Night, which is just a black. And I'm going to put that down on my lid. And I like to just dot a bunch of that on and then not bring it right up to my crease or into my inner corner, but blend it to get there. I'm gonna go in with the color Dimension, and I'm grabbing that on my Smith 253 brush, and I'm really kind of packing it into those bristles, and then I'm going to press it onto the lid. So I did that black base because this color has a lot of dimension to it, so it has kind of that silver base, and then it has these almost like magenta sparkles that are really pretty, so I wanted to do that black base to help bring out that dimension, because sometimes you'll get these shadows that just look like so incredible in the pan. Like they have this really, really beautiful like duochrome and sparkle to them and all that kind of stuff. And then you'll go and put it on your eye and it just looks like a little lackluster. Like you're not getting that kind of full impact. So whenever I'm having issues like that, I like to put it over a base. And it's just kind of cool to give your shadows a different look. Like you can apply them by themselves for daytime. And if you want to do something more dramatic, you can, you know, go in and switch it up with a base underneath. And then I'm also going to pick up a little bit of Osiris just for shits and gigs, and I'm going to put that not right on the outer corner, but near it. And I'm just gonna take a tiny little touch of the black color and add a little bit underneath our eyes. And again, I'm just gonna pop on my lashes and mascara and I'll show you guys the finished look. So this is the final look. And there's that look with a full face, nice and smoky, you know? This is the one thing that I felt like probably could have been left out of the palette, which was Osiris, because I felt like Dimension was kind of a similar color, and Osiris was almost like a deeper version of Dimension. And I don't know, I just felt like Dimension could be used on its own for that more kind of silvery color, but then when you put it over top of a black, it gives you that kind of nice, like intense, smoky impact with that little bit of a shimmer. And Osiris just kind of felt like a deeper version, which to me felt a little bit redundant. Like, I definitely think that you could achieve similar looks with them, even though they look quite different in the pan. That's just my personal experience with it. I think that that color could have probably been swapped out for something different, which would have made the palette a little bit like just a step further for me. But let's do this again, shall we? All right, I mean, I feel like we're doing ourselves a little bit of a disservice if we don't do like at least one look where we implement subculture, you know what I mean? And I also just feel like this color Throne is sort of like the only green in that palette, and I almost just like, I want to pair it with like greens and blues. I know it's like the obvious pairing, but I just feel like we should just take it there. Okay, so I'm gonna start by grabbing our color Saturn, this one, and I'm going to grab that on my Smith 230 brush, and I'm going to bring it into my crease. And I'm putting it more towards my lid rather than towards my brow, because I just want this to be like a little peak of color, not a super overwhelming transition shade. I think it's cool sometimes to mix those cool and warm tones together. So that's what I'm gonna be trying to go for today. Will it blend into the colors from Subculture? Will it blend? Okay, I'm gonna take Axis from the Subculture palette, and I'm just taking my little Volaire E08 brush, and I'm going to bring Axis onto my outer corner. And then I'm gonna grab the color Untamed on a Smith 230 brush to blend that out, and I'm just dotting in the gentlest amount. And I'm gonna take the color Queen Olive from Nude Sticks as my base for the color Throne, which I'll pop on next. And I'm just taking the corner of my finger and blending out those edges with my finger instead of a brush. And I'm not even gonna try and mess around with a brush on that color Throne. I'm just gonna go right in with my finger. Oh, wow. Wow, so nice. The thing that's particularly nice about that color Throne is that a lot of the times those kinds of deep emerald greens have a really, really black base. So when you put them on, they end up not looking emerald at all. They just look super like black, basically, with maybe like the slightest green sparkle. Okay, so I'm taking that color Untamed again on a little clean blending brush, and that's what I'm going to buff out these edges with. And just remember, if you're switching back and forth between these two palettes, the Subculture palette needs a lot less product on your brush. So don't forget that and go in with like a super heavy hand when you switch back to Subculture, because it's one way to get a really, really messy eye real fast. And then I'm gonna take that color Destiny on a little blending brush as well. And I'm gonna go over the edges of this. Or do I wanna do that with Axis? Actually, I'm gonna do it with Axis. I'm gonna pick up a little bit of Axis on my brush. Then I'm just gonna take this little Makeup Forever pencil in the color I-32, and I'm gonna run a little bit of that right along my lower lash line. Then I'm gonna pack on some of that color Axis underneath my lower lash line. And then I'm going to take a blending brush and blend this almost into more of a kind of like cat eye shape, if that makes sense. I'm just really pulling it up towards the outer corner of that brow. And I don't even need to put any additional color on my brush for this. I can literally just use what's already on the eye, just to kind of give us like a really nice elongated shape there. Then I'm just gonna put a little bit of that liner that we used into my inner corner and along the waterline. Making sure to get right between your lashes. Then I'm gonna go back into the color Lucid, and I'm just gonna pop that right on the inner corner. All right, you guys, I'm gonna go pop on my lashes and mascara, and I'll show you guys the finished look. So this is the final look. And this is the final look with a full face. I'm liking this kind of more editorial style eye. I think it looks really cool. I was really impressed by Throne. Definitely had a little bit of follow with that one, even though I applied it with my fingers. But the impact that it delivered was exactly what I was looking for. I was only gonna do 3 looks, but there's neutrals in the palette, and I'm not going to just pretend that they aren't there. You know, and neutrals are the lifeblood of this family. Dramatic? I think the fuck not. Today we're gonna be doing a super unique look, and I'm gonna start with Unity, which is like not wearable, but we're going to make it wearable, you know? I'm just taking that on a Smith 247 brush, and I'm going to blend it into the crease. And then I'm gonna pick up Parallel, and I'm just going to do a nice light smoky V. And I'm just gonna bring that under my lower lash line as well, keeping it a little bit closer to that lash line as opposed to going underneath the eye bag like we did with that other look. And I'm gonna dip back and forth between Unity and Saturn right there, just to get a little bit more of that kind of rusty orange color in the crease, but not going in full force. And I'm gonna pick up the color Sphinx on my little finger, and I'm just gonna put that straight onto the lid. Is this the last tutorial that I did? Essentially. Picking up a little bit more of Saturn and Parallel, that brown color, I'm going to just blend over my edges. I do feel like I kind of just accidentally blended away all of that color Sphinx. It was really not sticking onto my eyeball. I'm gonna give my brush a little spritz. I did not spray that on the brush, even slightly. And I'm gonna go back into Sphinx and see if this works better. I think that setting spray might be just slightly too scented for my eyeballs, or maybe they're just bleeding because we just did 4 eye looks in the course of 2 hours. I think I'm gonna take that color Lucid again just one more time and put it in that inner corner. I really like all the names out of this palette, just a side note. So this is the final look. All right. So when I saw pictures of this palette, I was like, oh yeah, that's a cool palette. I'm excited for that. And then when I actually got it in person, I was like, I don't really know how the fuck I'm gonna use that. It definitely felt almost less cohesive once I actually got it in my hands, and I was a little bit nervous about that starting out. But having used it and played around with it a little bit, I definitely feel like it's not as intimidating as it looks, and it actually was a little bit easier to come up with color combinations than I initially thought it was going to be. I think the color that people will struggle the most with is actually Throne, which is different from my initial thinking of Sphere. Sphere worked well as a transition shade, but it also would be completely fine on the lid with a number of other colors blending it out. But Throne is the one color in the palette that is quite cool toned, and it also doesn't seem to really have something that's obvious to blend it out with. I do think that you would have a little bit of trouble blending it out with those really warm tones in the palette, but this mauvey purple almost doesn't seem to match very well with it, so I think that might be a color that people will struggle with a little bit, and that might be the color that pushes them to reach for another palette to use along with it. I was pleasantly surprised by the color of Throne, because I definitely did think that it was going to pull a lot more black with that green shimmer like I had mentioned, but it ended up being really like beautiful and impactful, and it had like a lot of really good dimension to it. I think most people will be pleasantly surprised by the texture of this and the blendability. It's a lot more similar to the texture and formula of Modern Renaissance than it is to the user experience of Subculture. The colors are a lot lot more buildable, they're a lot more easy to blend out, it's a lot more foolproof than Subculture was. Even just dipping back into Subculture to use it along with different shadows today, I felt like I could tell like an immediate sort of struggle trying to use those shades alongside other shadows. So overall, I do like this palette. If these are colors that speak to you, I think that you'll really enjoy it. I think that you'll find the formula a lot easier to work with than Subculture was. For me personally, these colors don't necessarily call to me in the way that Modern Renaissance or Subculture do, but I do think that I will dip back into this, even just for the colors Lucid and Throne alone. So that's my thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something cool today. Let me know what you'd like to see next in the comments below, and I will get back to you. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace out.